Hey, welcome to Green the Vote Oklahoma Christian Challenge Part 10. Now, if you've watched the last episode, you know this is a continuation. I appreciate your patience while this has been uploading. If you're watching it immediately after I posted the last video, listen again. Go to my channel right under here. It says Deck Arts 1. Click on that. Go to my channel. And on there, you're going to find a playlist. Click on the playlist, and videos will be there. It's about 30 videos, and this is number 10 that I've made. So the rest of them are all documentaries, informational, great stuff. Some of them are very professionally made. There's 3 on there from the health science guru at CNN. Just deals with medical marijuana, and it really has a lot of information. So just go check it out. Watch it. They're an hour long each. And there's all kinds of other videos talk about the history of cannabis, about the medical benefits. There's videos from doctors from the Health Institute in Israel. And there's all kinds of people out there studying and been working on this for years. I'm not a medical guru, but there are a lot of things I'm learning too as I'm watching it. But the main reason I'm doing this Christian challenge is so you educate yourself, so you're not talking about things among your Christian brothers and sisters, which will happen. Because this petition gets passed around, eventually it's going to come up to a state vote in Oklahoma, and you will end up having to talk about that. And so let's get into that. You're going to need that information so you have an intelligent conversation and you know what's going on. Now, just so you know, the reason I'm making this video is to get into some information about myself as far as things that have happened to me inside the church in my own congregation. And I hope that it helps you. I hope that you learn from it and that it encourages you to walk the walk that Jesus Christ has set before you. There's also some other things I've got in the works which may have something to do with this type of stuff. I may have told you in the other video. If not, I'll tell you later in this one. Okay, be very patient. I'm talking fast for me. This is really fast because I talk forever. And I've made this video like a dozen times and deleted. Each one's run over 30 minutes. I can't figure out how to get it under 10 minutes or 15 minutes to make it more consumable for you. I'm trying not to do a 30-minute video, but I've got so much ground to cover. Okay. Go watch the other videos. Share them. Post them. Remember to subscribe to this video. Click the subscribe button so you know what's going on. You're able to follow these videos. And also in the description, I always put greenthevoteok.com somewhere so you can click on it and go to find out where their permanent petition sites are. You can go sign the petition. Now you can actually go and pick up a copy of the petition, pass it around with your friends and your loved ones, Thanksgiving or whenever. Get it filled out, turn it back in, and let's get this thing on the ballot in 2016, okay? We can do this. Let's move forward. As a Christian, you should understand some things. There is the law of God and there is the law of man. I've discussed the objections before that you're going to find mainly in the church. But it hits every church. It doesn't matter. Now, there are more liberal churches. Now, these more liberal churches, they don't care as far as your personal background or your activity in your life because they believe that the love of Jesus Christ exceeds anything you could possibly do in your life. And so they do things that even in a conservative church, we sit and we go, oh, look, hey, that's against the will of God. That's against the Bible. And we do that, okay? Let's be honest about it. But even among the conservatives, there's the ultra-conservatives. And they really like to lay the law down. Okay? Now, there are some, and this all goes back to history, and we can go all the way back to Egypt. We can go all the way back to ancient Israeli history and the Jews. Legalism's always plagued. Watch the other videos, like I say. So I'm going to try not to get in that conversation. It'll take me forever and eat up the whole video. What happened was it came into my church. Okay, majority of people in my church support this action. They have personal experience and people, loved ones that are suffering, and they've learned and become wise to what medical marijuana is. And there's a lot of people in my church who have not, and all they understand is it's illegal, it's against the law, and they feel that it has no place in the church. So let me explain what happened here. We'll try and be as quick and brief as I can about it. I don't think I'll have enough time, but please be patient and watch the whole video, and I'll get through the story by the end. I made the first video, part one, and it started going viral. Within a couple of days, it had 350 hits. There was a lot of people who started calling my church because I identified what church I was a member of, and they started saying, "Hey, do y'all support this? Are you endorsing this?" And there were even pastors from other churches around the state and outside the state who were calling, news agencies were calling, wanting to talk to my minister, and other elders had friends in other churches that were calling. And they began to get inundated with these calls, and they immediately had to respond. So they had a quick elders meeting, emergency elders meeting. That Sunday, the very first Sunday after I made that video, they had an emergency elders meeting, and I was in there, and the very first words out of the pastor's mouth were, "Robert." Boom. I knew my head was on the chopping block. And they proceeded to read me the riot act. How dare you have the gall to mention the name of your church, our church, and implicate us in this. You should never have done that. I'm offended. I don't agree with this. And they gave me all the reasons. I've already addressed all the objections that you frequently run across in the churches in other videos. So watch that. Share the videos. Again, like I say, educate yourself. Share the videos. Pass them around. So anyways, there was nothing I could do to overcome the offense. I don't care what I did. I could stand on my head, cut my throat. There would never have been any way of satisfying him. He legalistic he just was that way. Others were more compassionate and were like, "Well, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, and it's okay. I think we're fine. And let's just let it lay." And that was basically the general consensus when I left the meeting, was just to let it lay. I would not mention the name of the church again. That's all that was asked of me. So I left the meeting knowing what I had to do was go home and edit the video. I've never edited a video. I don't do that. I've made this video a dozen times and erased it and redone it because I don't edit videos. I don't know how. I mess up and I run too long. I don't know how to chop and crop and splice, and I don't do that. So I spent that afternoon editing 45 seconds of little bits and things that I've said. I watched the video over and over and edited the video. I put it back online. By then, I had cut the legs out of my video, and it's got 100 hits since, but it's never regained the steam that it did then. That's why I say, share that video, pass it around, get it out there. This Christian challenge must go viral. So anyways, what happened was 2 thumbs up, right? I not only met their obligations by never making another. I did make videos. I told them I was going to do that. I left the meeting. I was going to make videos, but I wouldn't mention them because I'm supporting my wife in this. This is the whole reason I do this, for my wife, not for myself. And so I said, okay, well, I'll mention her. I'll mention her and what's going on. I'll support her. And we were cool with that. But apparently there's some legalistic people in the church who felt, "No, Robert, you made other videos. You've got to stop making these videos." So they continue to call my pastor. Even though I 2 thumbs up, right? I exceeded their obligation, their expectations. And they had another emergency elders meeting. And a week ago, Thursday, they called me. They called me on a Thursday morning. I never get a call from the pastor. For years, I've asked the pastor, call me when you make hospital runs. Call me. Let me make visits with you. I want to go out with you. I want to learn from you. I want to grow with you. I never got the call. And all of a sudden, I'm getting a call. I know what the call is. I'm going to have the riot act read to me again. And sure enough, well, we've had an emergency meeting. We met with the elders. There's 4 other elders. And 3 of them have decided, and these were the ones that were most upset from the original meeting, have decided to sign off on a letter to ask you to step down as an elder. But we're going to leave this up to you. We just don't want any division or strife. And of course, I don't want that either in the church. I've been a member of this church for 42 years. I grew up in this church. I sat in the pew next to my mother as a child, doodled while this old Ozark country conservative hellfire brimstone minister would preach. I went to a church camp every summer with this church. I have cried and laughed and experienced life with these people. I've watched people my own age as kids grow up, have kids of their own. We have said blessings, laid hands on their children, and have people come forward. Done all the, I have done so much with the church. Broke bread with them, visited in hospitals, supported when they ran in and got arrested for doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. I've shared the love of Jesus Christ, the knowledge of Christ, taught Sunday school class, preached, been there when they got married, been there when they got buried. I have a long history. But the leadership came to me and said, we don't want to cause any trouble. We don't want to cause any strife. We don't want any division. Because they knew that if I wanted to, I could really stir up the pot. But that's not what the word of Christ is. Word of Christ is you love one another, you turn the other cheek, you walk the extra mile, you give what you have to give. And my service is to the body of Christ. I am not vindictive or hateful or spiteful like that. It was a time in my life when that used to be the path that I might have chosen. So I respected that call when I got that call. And they asked me to stop teaching, perhaps stop teaching my class, or continue to choose to help my wife and pursue this. So this was an either or, an ultimatum, a no-brainer. Okay, of course I'm going to serve my wife. I go home with my wife. I don't go home with the elders. I live with my wife. I don't live with the church members. I serve them, but this is my home, my family. It was never a decision. I've been with my wife on her deathbed. I mean, she has literally been at the borders of death multiple times, and I've laid there with her in the hospital, spent the night in the hospital on that old uncomfortable couch. I've watched over her, held her hand, wiped her tears, bandaged her wounds. There's no way I'm going to step away from helping my wife in this struggle to get medication or have the right to ask for it. That's all it is, a right to ask for permission to ask her doctor if this medication can help her. It was a no-brainer. It's the love of Christ. You share the love. And if you don't have the love for your own family, the people you know, the people you see, how can you say you have the love of Christ for your fellow man? Or more or less, how can you say you have love for Christ who you have not seen? I was confused. I was baffled. It's beyond the gospel. How could this be? More than that, I was betrayed by the members of my brothers in my own congregation. Stabbed in the back, given an ultimatum. You must, an either or. But I love Christ more than all of that. I love Christ so much that my wife knows that if I had to choose, I choose her, but God is my number one walk in life. He puts the breath of life in me. When I get up in the morning and put my feet on the floor, that's God. Grace and mercy and love helps me walk across the floor. My wife, every day she spends with me, that's the blessing God gave me. Okay, that's a gift that God gave me, regardless. And so it was a difference of opinion. There's no sense in arguing and dividing a church over a difference of opinion. So instantly in the same thought, the thought is, okay, well, let's say I step down as an elder and retire as an elder. In our church, the teaching is if you retire from being an elder, you're still an elder in the church. Okay, we've had lots of elders who have retired and decided not to serve. You're still an elder in the church. So I could step down and retire as an elder. So I've decided to step down and retire as an elder in the church. I decided to step down and retire as being a teacher. I'm just retiring early. I'm retiring young. I had hoped to do this for many years for the church. I had plans, but best laid plans, as they say. God has His own plans, and those are the important plans. My plans were to benefit the church and to bless the church and to serve the church and to continue to find a way to be a blessing, not only for those who are there today, but for those who are there tomorrow. But this choice had to be made. And so the question was, could I sit in the pew for the next 5 years while this became passed and became legal, and it may be in the next couple of years, in Oklahoma, and water kind of just under the bridge and things settled down and everything was acceptable and legal, and then, become an active elder again? Or would that be an open wound that would cause division in the church because of the difference of opinion? And there were legalism and people who were very hateful and spiteful and saying really nasty things to the pastor about me and about this thing, my wife and this whole thing. And that's in every congregation. Again, like I say, if you're a Christian in your church, you're going to face this. So I'm hoping that you're learning as I'm talking about the love of Christ, unity in the body, and not letting a difference of opinion split you and separate you. I mean, as far as split the church. You may have to find a different walk, like Barnabas and Paul had to go different paths. You're still in the ministry. I'm still in the ministry. Which brings me to this stuff here. I may end up deciding to start doing online Bible studies. And if I do, I hope you'll join me. Subscribe so you'll know when that happens. You'll be able to catch the videos, be notified. I put them on there. I may post it also on YouTube so that you'll know I've started doing that. I'm very interested, on fire for God, and I love talking about God. I could talk all day, as you know, by watching these videos. I still haven't got to the point. I'm almost 15 minutes into it. Okay. So I got the call, decide whether or not to be an elder, decide whether or not you want to be an elder, a teacher, or you want to continue this work serving your wife. Like I said, no brainer. So the next decision was whether or not I want to sit in the pew for the next 5 years. Again, most of the elders here are elders. There's four of them are in their 70s or pushing 70 and having health issues and stuff. And in 5 years, most of those guys aren't even going to be on the board. Most of the board members who are on the board right now are not going to be on the board. Members change, come and go. God has plans. He's constantly moving people, shepherds around. And he has his own plans. He does things his own way. And in 5 years, who knows? Nobody knows where the church is going to be. I know this is going to have a ripple effect throughout the church. I know it's going to have a ripple effect from people who are not, just like yourself, who are not even a member of my church, who are being affected by the decision that was made. But my decision was I was not going to let this fester. I was not going to sit in a pew and let it fester and become gangrene and in the church, where we were having to cut off whole parts of the body in order for the church to continue to live. That's not how you treat the bride of Christ and the church. That must be unity, must be preserved. And so I said, okay, I'll choose a different path. And so I have left the church. And last night I went to the church and I packed up my box of belongings and came home. The hardest part for me was saying goodbye to my Sunday school class the week ago when I made the announcement to the Sunday school class. Very emotional. I was in tears, if you can imagine, as were most of the people in the class. Again, because like I say, they're family members, and it's hard to say goodbye to a family member that you might not see again for years. But I'm taking a different journey on wherever God leads me. And this is kind of a ministry to me, and so it is a different ministry. But that last Sunday morning, as I sat there last Sunday morning, and sat there and reminisced in my mind, the minister's preaching and I'm listening to him, and he's talking about hermeneutics and the history of the Bible and the validity of the Bible and how it was established and canonized. And my mind, I know those things, so my mind's wandering, and I'm envisioning sitting on the pew over there. And when I sat back there and watched our youth minister walk down the aisle with his lovely bride, walking down the aisle with my own bride one day, I walked down that same aisle and envisioning my wife in her wedding gown and the day we got married there in the church, envisioning baptizing in the church, baptizing my grandmother, baptizing my mother. I mean, my wife in that church. My grandmother, you have to understand, deathly afraid of water. Getting in the bathtub was, no, it scared her to death. She did not like to be in a body, and I would have the honor of doing that. And I can think of so many other honors and blessings in ways that this church has helped me. So don't think that I hate this church or I'm begrudging this church anything. I want to preserve that family and that unity and the love that's in that body. Those two ladies, the pastor told me, a couple ladies from my Sunday school class said they supported my wife and myself and would sign the petition, but they didn't think it belonged to the church. They're well-meaning ladies, but the pastor took that as, you shut him down. Legalism has no place in the church. It destroys and kills church. And the Jews, when they went into captivity in Babylon, they came back out after the minor prophets, they're all major, but the minor prophets ended up speaking. They had 400 years to sit and to contemplate why they were punished, why they went into captivity, knowing they set up idols and that they had to get rid of their idols, that they began to establish the moral code. And that law of God just blew up. Huge. So many laws, so many things you couldn't do. We can't do that to the church. That can't happen in the church, but it does. You will face this in a Christian challenge. It will be an obstacle you'll have to overcome. You'll have to decide for yourself. Where is your obligation? Is your obligation to recognize the love of Christ exceeds the boundaries of time and space? I know you Trekkies are thinking, time and space and geographical lines, and the love of God spreads throughout the cosmos, looks down upon everybody and accepts everybody where they're at. Christ died for everybody once and for all on the cross. That mercy is more important than sacrifice. That love covers a multitude of sins. You're going to have to look and debate inside yourself where you think the gospel of Christ is, where you belong, where it belongs in the church. Like I pointed out in other videos, if your leadership and your pastor in your church, your ministerial alliance, don't want to listen to you talk about this, they shut you down, be respectful, understand you have a difference of opinions. But at the same time, if you have somebody in your church preaching legalism, coming along and trying to divide the church, coming along and being hateful and spiteful, vindictive, envious, and showing all the fruits of the flesh, again, they're in the scripture, the fruits of the flesh, gossip, backbiter, you've got to get that out of the church. Regardless, this issue, this argument, this subject, that cannot exist in the body of Christ. That has nothing to do with Christ, okay? Christ is about love and patience and love. The Bible says, if you lay down your life for another person, but you have not love in your heart, it doesn't gain you anything. If you speak the 10,000 words in another tongue, the tongues of angels, but you have not love in your heart, it gains you nothing. Love is gentle, it's kind, it's patience, it's forgiving, it keeps no record of any wrongs, it's long-suffering, it's self-control. All the things that oppose that and oppose the Spirit of Christ has no place in your church. When we're talking about this issue, it's no different than what James talked about when he said, you cannot walk by somebody who has a need and they're hungry and they're cold and say, well, God bless you, you be warm and I'll pray for you, and you just keep on walking. That is not love. That is not what Christ wants you to be. Christ wants you to take what you have and to give to others. One of the things you have in this nation is the right to vote. When this comes up for a vote, you understand as a Christian, your voice counts. You carry the vote. Vote love. There's a patient in a hospital today. There's a family member, a friend, a member in your own congregation who needs you to vote love. Not legalism, not blind hate, or anything else. Just that they can have access to their medication. I hope you've learned something from this. I hope it's encouraged you. I hope you don't divide the body of Christ over a difference of opinion, but you continue to push the issue and the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have to wrap this up. I'm way over the limit. I've made this video a dozen times. There's no other way I can make this and cut it shorter and get to what needs to be said. I thank you for your patience and your time out of your day to watch this. I want you to pass the videos around. Please share these videos. Share them on Facebook. Share them on YouTube. Repost them on your own channel. Put them in your playlist. Get them out there. Share these on Google. Share them on Twitter. Share every one of these videos. I addressed all the objections. I addressed what's happening, my own history, what's happened to me, how it's touched my life. Again, even though I'm not an active elder, it doesn't mean I'm not an elder. According to our teachings and the teachings I have been learning for the last 4 decades, once you're an elder in the church, you're always an elder. The only thing that removes you from that is if you've removed your walk with God, and there's nothing that's going to remove me from my walk with God. Like I say, it's just too much of a rich blessing, too much love. There's nothing that can remove you from the love of God. I don't care what you've done in your life. You can find God. Seek Him and find Him.